Hello, and thank you to our audience for joining us for this special event. Today, we are going to be treated to an incredible case study discussion from Nutanix and from TELUS Spark. I'm really excited about this. We're going to talk about how one IT manager is driving digital engagement with hyperconverged infrastructure. And this is going to be a discussion from TELUS Spark about what they're doing with Nutanix. And as far as introductions go, I'm Scott Lowe. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I'll be moderating today's event. And we have two great presenters. We have Christian Badunarayanan, who is the Director of Product Marketing for Nutanix. Christian, thank you for being here today.
Scott, thanks for having us, Scott.
And we have Faisal Jawaid, who is the IT Manager for TELUS Spark. Faisal, thank you for being here today as well.
Thank you for having me.
And before we get started, I will have a couple of housekeeping items I want to make you aware of. First of all, if you have questions, I should record this and play it because I say the same thing and I mean it. If you have questions for any of us, me or our presenters from Nutanix and TELUS Spark today, please ask them in the questions pane in the GoToWebinar control panel. We will be taking questions during the event, and we want to make sure all of your questions get answered. This is a great opportunity for the members of our audience to hear from a peer who has gone down the road that you're considering. So we really urge you to ask questions. And of course, if you're here today, we have a great gift for you in the form of a Tango gift card that we'll be reaching out to you after the event to claim. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Krish, who will be talking to us about what's going to be happening today.
Thank you, Scott. Now, before we get started, and we're all here, let's be honest, to hear about Faisal's story of how we use hyperconverged infrastructure to transform operations at TELUS Spark. But what I want to do, especially for the ones of us that are new to hyperconverged infrastructure, is very quickly introduce what it is before I hand it over to Faisal. Now, all too often are we familiar with how IT operates today. There's a lot of complexity. There's this constant need to work with multiple vendors to acquire infrastructure, deploy it carefully after detailed integrations, then manage the infrastructure across various infrastructure teams, be it server, networking, storage, and whatnot. And then when problems happen, when the application decides to slow down or if there's an outage, work across those multiple teams that we just talked about over many pies of pizza at 12 a.m., in the middle of the night, trying to figure out whose fault it is and how do we get the problem fixed and such, right? All those very fun evenings. And then eventually, when it comes to upgrading elements of the stack, whether it's the BIOS, the firmware, the virtualization software, or any other such middleware, to go through those painfully meticulous processes where you have to look at these compatibility lists, to understand if a BIOS upgrade would make the virtualization software stop performing the way it should and such. It's a very painful and in detail task, just as much as what troubleshooting might look like. And then eventually 3 to 5 years hence to think about what your needs are going to look like for another 3 to 5 years before you refresh the hardware. This is a really, really difficult and painful process for most infrastructure and IT organization teams to deal with. So it is no wonder that us as members of the IT infrastructure and operations teams find that we spend 80% of our time managing speeds and feeds, managing the infrastructure, when our audiences, our stakeholders, whether it is in the line of business or our customers or our partners, care only about what they see over the water level, right? The 20% of the output that we put out, that's the applications. They couldn't care less about the infrastructure that it rides upon. But we know, as members of the IT infrastructure and operations teams, we know that having a bedrock, a strong bedrock, of infrastructure upon which those applications run is critical to how these applications perform and how 24/7 continuity is ensured, right? But all that goes unrecognized for the most. So and this is starkly apparent when we surveyed members like yourselves, right? Members of the IT infrastructure and operations teams, virtualization engineers, sysadmins across the world, and 57% of those respondents told us that application developers constantly circumvent IT. IT is seen as the retardant to innovation as opposed to the proponent or the team that fosters innovation, right? So what's happened as a result of that is there's this move to public cloud, right? Let's make infrastructure someone else's problem. When in reality, what we need to be thinking about is how do we emulate some of those best practices that public cloud has put in place and bring that into the data center so we get the benefits of the public cloud in addition to the security and control that we already have within our data centers. So that's exactly what we went about doing. We hired some of the smartest engineers from these hyperscale companies like Google, Facebook, and such, and built software-defined infrastructure that emulated all these best traits of the public cloud, such as no single points of failure. It runs upon off-the-shelf hardware, leverages machine learning and artificial intelligence to a great amount to be able to automate some of those routine tasks that you shouldn't have to be bothered with in anyways, but spend a lot of time actually taking care of. To build self-healing capabilities into the system so that when there's anomalies that occur, the system can take decisions for you and make sure that performance is upheld and there is resiliency that's built into the system to ensure that it runs 24/7. And as a result, you get everything we talked about, right? The ability to be able to scale the infrastructure rapidly as and when your business needs it, to be able to start small and grow based upon your needs, as opposed to having to invest in infrastructure for the next 3 to 5 years, and to leverage one-click operations where you are basically approving actions based upon intelligence and behavior analysis that's already taken place by the systems and recommendations that are provided to you, and continuously enabling your stakeholders who previously would have seen you as redundant to innovation to one that is constantly relying upon IT to drive innovation. So what does that look like from a form factor basis? We're basically talking about replacing complex three-tier infrastructures, one that relies upon a compute farm with storage networks that connect up to multiple SANs through a storage controller, set of storage controllers, and then virtualization built on top of that with the apps that finally operate on top of those virtualization software in the form of VMs, right? So we're talking about being able to consolidate all this complexity that needs tender love and caring to a very easy turnkey solution that runs on commodity hardware. And what makes it even more appealing is the fact that you can start with one and scale out as you need to linearly as your workloads grow, as your demands grow from your business or your customers. And it continues to support a whole range of virtualization software, whether it's from VMware, Citrix, Microsoft, upon which you can run your applications. And better yet, if you want to truly emulate public cloud like in operations, you should not have to manage a virtualization layer. So it also offers built-in, natively available virtualization capabilities through AHV, the native hypervisor that Nutanix provides, upon which you can run your applications. And better yet, it works with your existing configurations. It works with your existing top-of-rack switches, right? So you don't have to recreate and re-architect your rack configurations within your data centers. Now with that, I want to hand it over to Faisal Jawaid, who's an IT manager at TELUS Spark, who has leveraged this technology to transform how IT is delivered as a service within his organization. Over to you, Faisal.
Thank you, Krish. Thank you, Scott, for having me today, allowing me to share my story with all of you. And thanks everybody who joined today. Yeah, my name is Faisal. I'm looking after the IT infrastructure at TELUS Spark, which is in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Just wanted to share with you initially that what we do here, what sort of a facility we operate. So the Science Center in Calgary is initially formed in 1967. Just to promote like curiosity and innovation, collaboration, and encouraging children and youth to pursue higher education in careers in science and technology. So we moved to this new building, which you can see on the screen. This is our new facility. We moved here in 2011, and this is a very, very big and very beautiful building. We have 153 1,000 square foot of facility on the whole. Inside this building, we have different sections and different features for the families, for the kids, for the guests. We operate 7 days a week, and what we have inside the building is Creative Kids Museum, which is meant for little kids, which are like under 9 years old. So they have a different space to learn and grow. And then we have another space called Open Studio Workshop, which is where we can provide real tools to kids and the guests to create new stuff every day. We have a section called Energy and Innovation, where guests can go over there and stretch their problem-solving capabilities by probing the nature of energy. Then we have a feature called Earth and Sky. This is where guests can explore our world from bedrock beneath us to the aurora overhead. There's another section called Being Human, which is for the guest experiencing with them and with their friends and family by connecting themselves with one-to-one kind of personal experiences to science behind being human. Then we have outdoor park, which is called Brinasium, which is very, very unique in our city. We have different unique structures over there to create and innovate kids' minds while they are playing outside. So all of this we are supporting an IT infrastructure, and because every day the guest comes in and they create new stuff digitally. We have Microsoft systems, we have Apple minis who are supporting our feature galleries, and we provide like immersive exhibitions to our guests 7 days a week. Then we have live science demos every day. We also have traveling exhibitions where for like 6 to 8 months, they're like different people come in and exhibit their, different options to the guests and provide them like guest experiences every day. So, and as an IT team, we're providing support on everyday aspects. We have online presence to sparkscience.ca, where people can go over there and buy tickets online. They can buy the dome shows, all sort of like, stuff we are selling online. As the customer relationship systems, also we have the system in place on site. We have front of house. We are selling tickets on site too. So just to give you an idea that how we comprise our systems and how we support our guests every day and provide them the guest experiences they need, and we just need to wow them every day when they come to our site. So back in 2017, when it's not like actual 2017, but we start evaluating the product in 1 year before. So it took me like a year to complete my evaluation that what we need, because at that time, as I told you earlier, that we came to this new building in 2011. So after 6 years, so all the installed infrastructure was like already expired or about to expire, or like we need to do like maintenance contracts to have the SLAs, in place. So that is a big challenge for us. The cost is high. We have the processes like insufficient and inability to scale the infrastructure at that time. It's like we, to troubleshoot a single thing, and like most of you understand all these things, we are still using 3-tier infrastructure in some of our environment till today. The problem with this 3-tier infrastructure that you have different dashboards and different things to look after. And at that time, to call a support, I need to call Cisco to look after if there's an issue with the UCS or fiber interconnect switches. And if there's something wrong with the hypervisor, so at that time, we will be using VMware ESXi and Microsoft Hyper-V. So at that time, our model was comprising of 9 views inside one rack, where we have a chassis, UCS interconnect switches, 2 interconnect switches for high availability. Then we have 5 hosts comprising of 2 VMware ESX and 3 Hyper-V, Microsoft Hyper-V hypervisor. So troubleshooting is a pain. Support is more challenging. Then we have, I didn't mention over here, but it's on the other slide, I have a storage controller also, which was connecting to that UCS environment. So yeah, most of the people understand that how painful it is to call different vendors, and there's no single pane of glass to troubleshoot and understand the problem at hand. So on the headcount side, we have 5 different resources, functionality-wise. Person looking after the servers, another guy who's looking after storage controllers, networking, database, desktop supports, and so on and so forth. So the workloads we will be using at that time, as I told you earlier, that was like online install, web presence, we have interactive exhibits, and we have point of sale system running on a different Dell environment. Also at that time with a different storage connection. We have at that time Active Directory, SQL servers, Microsoft GPs, legacy softwares, and some building maintenance softwares. All in all, we have a small footprint of 40 plus virtual machines running at that time. So, sorry. Okay, so what I was looking at that time, and when I was evaluating to replace the system, back in 2017, I never heard of Nutanix or Hyperconverged Infrastructure, but one fine guy, came and we talked, and he told me about the Hyperconverged infrastructure, which is a good replacement solution for us. And I start researching, look after, and looking into options with SimpliVity and Nutanix and a Cisco HyperFlex. So I was not only evaluating these different vendors, but I'm totally fell into the thing that I don't want to replace my 3-tier infrastructure with another 3-tier different and new hardware. So I was totally sold on that, okay, whatever I replace, I will go with the Hyperconverged solution, just to minimize the pain I have for every day. That the expenses like shooting high, and I forgot to inform you and tell you that we are a not-for-profit organization, so budget is always a constraint for us. So what we need is ease of use, ease to maintenance, reduce upfront and maintenance cost, just to have a competent solution which can give us and operate across the whole IT and reduce the operating expenditure and the capital expenditure too. So then I evaluated like 3 different solutions. One is Cisco HyperFlex. They proposed node cluster, but in their solution, they're still like, they gave me the option for fiber interconnect switches with a 3-host hardware connected to that switch, which I really don't like it. I conducted, I attended the workshops and everything, but in my opinion, I didn't sell to this idea of fiber interconnect switches running like you cannot. It's not a pure hyperconverged solution for me. And there will be like additional cost to us. Everybody can understand that Cisco is a very expensive solution. And there, the additional cost will be the Hyper-V cost, either if I use ESX or Microsoft Hypervisor. So all in all, this solution doesn't apply to us. And the second, proposal which I look into was the SimpliVity. And they also offered a 3-node solution for us with 5-year support and 3-node cluster. But I still, the complexity of the solution was like, having a riser card. If people know about SimpliVity, they have a riser card in their solution, in their host. So I didn't like that bit, So Nutanix proposes me with a 4-node cluster, and this is a 2U footprint, micro processors, the CPUs. We bundle like 5 years support, hardware and software, bundle it, and the Prism Pro, which when I saw the demo, I really liked it because it's just like with a single pane of glass, you can have all your things that's in front of you, and you don't have to log in to 3 or 4 different portals to troubleshoot a single task. And their proposal includes all the installation, rack and stack, and hypervisors and admin trainings also. And what I love about their solution was they're like the AHV, the Cripples hypervisor, because it comes bundled with their software, with Prisms and the whole like solution. And I don't want to maintain additional like hypervisor cost. Installation is less expensive. So overall, their solution is less expensive than the other 2, and they are like more robust and more fit for our organization. So that's the main thing which I was looking for, that it has to be fit for our company and less expensive and less prone to some like they give me like a single pane of glass with the Prism Pro and everything. So why I choose Nutanix? It's just I told you earlier that they've given me through Prism Pro. I have a single pane of glass. I log in on a one portal and I see the storage, networking, hard drives, compute, all in one place. So I don't have to go on different portals to look into these things. The hypervisors is license free. That's right for us. I don't need an extra training. After I think 2 hours, 3 hours, I was good to go, and they just showed me I think 2 or 3 VM migration, one of each from ESX and Microsoft Hyper-V, and then I did my myself for the rest of those 40 virtual machines. It was we have at that time we changed our strategy also from capex to opex. We lease all the whole solution for 5 years, and that is also like become cheaper for us going forward as an operating expense. Okay, I just wanted to show you the actual rack diagram of that three-tier infrastructure back in March 2017. So as I told you earlier that we have these interconnect switches, two of them for high availability, then this is the Cisco UCS chassis, 6U, which has 5 hosts built in, and these fiber interconnect switches plus hosts was connected to the NetApp controllers over here with this external storage. So you can see this is a typical three-tier environment, which is like very complex. Need more resources, more training, more time to support. So yeah. So after the Nutanix deployment, the hyperconverged environment looked like this. You can see the rack is like empty from the top. So we save like so much in data center havoc. Also the cooling expenses and other stuff on a day-to-day basis. And you can see down here it's from 9U on the top, we got like 2U with 4 nodes. And the beauty of this Nutanix solution that we connect, there's no other hardware involved in it. We connect directly this cluster to our Nexus 7K switch, and we got the throughput of 10 gig Ethernet. Previously, with Cisco UCS three-tier infrastructure, we were getting like 1 gig with fiber interconnect switches. So it improved our footprint all over in the data center, reduce cost to operate data center also with energy sufficient and cooling expenses. It improved our application performance also, as you can see, like, going from 1 gig to 10 gig. And plus, this Nutanix solution also have the SSDs inside, so that those are like faster than the controllers we have earlier supporting the UCS infrastructure. Previous slide shows you this the scenario in 2017. Last year, we replaced and migrate our point of sale system, which was running on a separate controller and separate environment, which was at Dell storage at that time. So we replaced the whole environment of 6U to the existing 4-node cluster. So you don't need to add any cost to it. This is a one-click migration, no downtime. The ESX to AHV migration is very smooth. So there's no issues at all. And in the end, the results was like, improved performance. The backup, I'll just give you an example. Previously when I was doing backups on the Dell storage for that point of sale system, the time it was taking at that time like 25 to 30 minutes. And it was just like 10 gig of the database. After we moved to Nutanix, the backup reduced from 25 minutes to, I think it was 2.5 or maximum 3 minutes for the same database, 10 gig database. So you can see the huge performance improvement over there. And overall, our front of house and the users who are using point of sale system, they are very happy. They are running the queries simultaneously. Before that, when it was running in Dell environment in a three-tier structure, we instructed clearly to our staff that please do not run your historical queries or something during the business hours. But now after Nutanix migration, it's like we don't have a restriction for them. They can run the query during business hours, and there's no performance lagging during that time. My plan, my roadmap going forward, hopefully by this year, by the end of this year, that if I can show, sorry. can show you on the previous slide that over here we have a backup server, tape libraries, and all this network, NetApp controller, which is still there. It's not serving the UCS, but we are using it as a file server. So my plan going forward is to replace all these NetApp controllers plus a backup and tape library to Nutanix files, and which I heard it's very good, and I'm doing testing in my environment, and I really like it. It comes with 1 terabyte, and there's I think a promo from Nutanix. Krish can confirm there's a 1 terabyte free license for Nutanix files. I'm pretty excited to move from my NetApp controllers and filers to Nutanix files. That's my future plan, plus removing and migrating my tape library to Nutanix backup system, which is Leap or like a private cloud or something. So I'm still looking into these options as a future roadmap. So finally, what I achieved doing this, and I'm using the Nutanix for the last 2 years, and for these 2 years I've grown confidence, and because I've seen a lot of difference. I've heard good things from my user feedback and everything. People are happy in my organizations. I have less work to do in creating infrastructures and everything. So, and I can more focus on getting new projects done. So previously, as I told you that, we have 5 different IT specialists in my organization. We were all the time busy in maintaining that Cisco UCS and filers, troubleshooting the network and everything. So we didn't have the time to do new projects. But now we reduced to 3 IT support, and we building their skills, on Nutanix also. They are happy. We have developers who use the point of sale system, which is now running in Nutanix Hyperconverged. They are working in projects every day, and I've got good feedback heard from him also. And now we are more focused on the IT functions rather than creating IT, the virtual machines, which is very painful before Nutanix. And we fine-tune the processes also. Previously, it was super processes to provision a VM on Cisco UCS. I need to look into the best case scenarios on NetApp. What is the filer, recommendations for NetApp, then looking into SQL Server recommendations, then UCS, Cisco. So all these things slow down new projects, and we were more focused into the IT infrastructure instead of the application and the project itself. And now we we are totally it's 180-degree turnaround, and we are more focused on the customers because we have less concerns on the infrastructure. The new VMs, it's easy to provision. Management is easy, single pane of glass. More focus on providing good customer services and enhancing our everyday guest experiences. The main thing, as I told you earlier, that we are a not-for-profit organization. The cost is the main thing for us. So previously, before Nutanix, our capital expenditure plus operating expenditure was higher than normal because we have so many vendors to look into. There are so many different maintenance contracts to renew also. The cost for maintaining like annual subscription for VMware, you know better that you have to pay annually to maintain your subscription for VMware and support escalation. Multi-vendor management, pain, but now after Nutanix, and we roll out the solution with the right price and with the right maintenance, we have nothing there's no cost for the hypervisor, and you can run everything on Acropolis hypervisor. So there is no limitation, no restrictions, not that I've known of, like nothing, no restriction in our organization for AHV, and the support is excellent. I just need to call, or I didn't even need to call their support. Like I have a portal login, I can open a ticket using my phone, using any tablet or mobile device, and even not like I can open a trouble ticket, but I can open a ticket where I need some advice from their technical tech guys. That there's one time I needed some advice of what are the best recommendation and best case scenarios for how to set up SQL Server on AHV, and I can talk to them without any issues. They are very, very cordial. They are very experienced, and they are very helpful. So I'm pretty happy with their support, the support system and everything. So yeah, so this is my story. I hope that you learn something, you gain something, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer. To you, Krish.
Yeah, thank you, Faisal. And as Faisal mentioned, please feel free to add questions to the questions column within the webinar user interface, and we'll get to those right after the presentation. Now, I want to give you a quick introduction as to what goes under the covers, right? How does this technology work? So here's what you see as the traditional virtualized environment, where you've got the server farms, if you will, the virtualization layer, the VMs are run on top of it, and the storage area networks connected to storage networks. Now, with Nutanix, what we've done is we've made it possible to eliminate those storage networks entirely and add local attached storage, right? So whether it's flash, NVMe, or spinning disks, to each of the nodes within your environment. And once we've done that, we virtualized the storage controllers across each of the nodes, and eventually created one storage pool across all the nodes within the cluster. Now, the beauty of this architecture is that with this one storage pool, you've eliminated the need for storage networks. As a result, you've reduced the number of hops between compute and storage, and thereby increased your IOPS, and as a result, performance of your workloads that you run on top of this hyperconverged infrastructure-based environment. You can always start small and scale without limits linearly. So you're always thinking about emulating public cloud-like behavior, a behavior that requires operating expenses as opposed to capital expenses. You can start small and scale as your needs define it. You can increase capacity one node at a time. You can choose to do so disproportionately with more compute or with more storage based upon your needs. You can mix different node types across hardware generations. So there is no requirement for you to make your earlier nodes obsolete when new nodes are available. So you can work, all these nodes can continue to work in the same cluster and be utilized as a part of your environment. Then finally, data is kept local for maximum performance. So if your workloads run on node 1, the applicable data is stored within the storage layer in node 1. So as a result, you're getting a lot more performance for your workloads. This has particularly been visible with our database-based workloads. So when we have customers that run Oracle or SQL Server, they find that the IOPS tend to increase significantly once they do it on hyperconverged infrastructure from Nutanix. Now, that storage fabric comes with all the enterprise capabilities that you would expect, right? Right from being able to natively take snapshots, make clones, tier data between flash and spinning disks as required based upon the frequency of access for that data. It comes with native compression and deduplication, as well as replication factors of 1 and 2 with erasure coding. So you're able to get more resiliency in how your data is stored to eliminate any data loss. You can also, as a part of your backup and disaster recovery strategy, you can also take app-consistent snapshots of your workloads, put in place asynchronous or near-synchronous replication across your primary and secondary data centers, or even do so on a real-time active-active basis where you need to replicate and serve out to your audiences across 2 different databases that are running similar workloads. The platform is built with security in mind, right from being able to automatically validate your security posture and bring it back to compliance every time there's a departure from that security compliance posture that you want to put in place, right? And when there's any sort of threat that can threaten your data or your workloads, there's automatic cluster lockdown, which will eliminate any additional access to it. And it comes with data address encryption. So all data address can either be encrypted using software-based encryption that's a part of the platform, and it also supports self-encrypting drives when you need it. And in addition, you don't need to actually acquire a third-party key management system. You can use natively available key management capabilities that is a part of the platform. Now, what you've heard thus far is everything that helps build the foundation for your compute and storage layer, right, through hyperconverged infrastructure. We've begun to build on top of this so you get a complete platform upon which you can run your workloads. First, by being able to provide support for the various popular hypervisors in the market, or to allow you to leverage built-in virtualization capabilities to AHV. And once you've gotten there and have built hyperconverged infrastructure within your organization with virtualization, we've tackled the need for data management, right? Whether you need a solution for your structured data through ERA, which is one click for databases, which enables you to be able to provision databases, put in place a backup strategy, be able to securely clone, scrub data for sensitive customer identifying information, and make it available to the various parts of your organization for dev test capabilities, for example. Or virtualize those other scale-up technologies, like what Faisal mentioned with NetApp filers that he has in place, right? And bring that onto hyperconverged infrastructure as a scale-out technology where you can start small and scale out indefinitely as your filer needs grow, right? So through files, you're able to do that. And finally, for more of those long-term retention use cases, or for addressing the needs of developers that want S3 compatible object storage, you also have buckets as a part of the platform that can give you that capability. And in a similar fashion to files, it gives you 2 terabytes of data of capacity for free. And then from there on, you're able to scale out as your needs grow for those long-term retention capabilities, for your backup requirements, for archival, or for those developer use cases that are building those cloud-native applications based upon microservices and such. Now, once you've taken care of your compute, storage, as well as your data management capabilities, you want to make all this incredibly easy to use. And this is where Prism really shines. And Faisal, as many of our other customers, use Prism extensively to manage the infrastructure lifecycle, right from being able to provision it, to provision VMs, or monitor their environments across compute, storage, the virtual machines, detect anomalies, or plan for capacity over a period of time that they want to maintain the infrastructure, and then get that complete insight into how it's performing. And then finally, and most importantly, be able to put in place one-click upgrades, right? That is usually a very complex process, as we had talked about earlier, right? Being able to let the system orchestrate the rollout of updates across firmware, the BIOS, the virtualization layers, the Nutanix software that you have in place, while the system understands the dependencies between one and the other. We've got customers who rely on this extensively, and many of them that roll out these updates during business hours. Or, we've got a couple of them on Twitter, especially. You might see that we've got a couple of them that have run upgrades from a helicopter or from their Tesla, right? For those who can afford Teslas, right? So there's a lot of that goodness that comes from being able to leverage Prism to do those one-click upgrades and make it incredibly easy to manage infrastructure. And what's becoming increasingly important as IT transforms from an infrastructure organization to a service organization is being able to serve the needs of multiple stakeholders within your organization. And to do that effectively, you need to be able to secure the environments or the resources that are dedicated to each of your stakeholders from the others. And to do so, you need to be able to implement microsegmentation rules and policies that can create walled gardens around these environments and protect one stakeholder's applications, databases, workloads, etc., from those of others. And with Flow, which is a part of AHV, you get to be able to leverage that capability directly from within Prism. You get a nice visual of what your environment looks like, the various VMs and the communications that take place between them. And in real time, you're able to apply network microsegmentation policies that will help you secure your network from internal threats as well as external threats. So this is a capability that's also a part of the platform that enables our customers to be able to build microsegmentation policies within their environment. Now, once you attack the infrastructure problem and been able to get this full stack consolidation or convergence with the operations that are required to operate it, the focus now goes into applications, right? So Calm, again, which is accessed via Prism, everything is from the single pane of glass, enables you to do just that. Quite often we find our customers spend many hours during the day just supporting tickets for requests that are fairly repetitive. It could be something as simple as provisioning a virtual machine, or it could be a request for setting up a lab stack, right? And with Calm, you can begin to really build blueprints that can basically tell the system what steps to take in order to provision a VM, or what steps to take in order to set up a lab stack, and make these recipes or blueprints, if you will, available in the app marketplace that you then expose to your internal stakeholders. So they can begin to self-serve for those resources or requests that they need to make. As a result, you as a member of the IT organization have freed up time from your day to service tickets on a one-on-one basis, and your stakeholders get instant gratification, just like they do when they install an application from their phones, from the App Store or the Google Play Store. So that's the kind of behavior that Calm enables you to deliver to your audience in the organization. And then finally, it's about being able to use disaster recovery as a service through Leap that enables you to create this, to actualize a DR strategy without having to dedicate resources for a completely dedicated secondary data center for DR. And finally, when you think about a multi-cloud environment, if you might have a scenario where you've got your private data center plus your public cloud environments, how do you unify operations across it all? And you're able to do so using Beam by getting a real-time insight into the cost implications of your environment, whether it's in Nutanix or in Azure or in AWS or GCP, and choose how you want to spend your budget accordingly and place your workloads based upon those SLAs and the budget requirements that you've set in place. And while you're doing that, you can use Epoch to get end-to-end visibility across your entire environment. So with the insights you get from a cost basis, from an application performance basis, and the control you get from within Prism and Calm, you're able to get true multi-cloud operations in place that are aligned with your budgetary constraints, as well as the SLAs that you've promised to your various stakeholders in the organization. That said, what you can actually begin to do is utilize this platform as one standardized environment that can serve multiple use cases, whether it is to roll out enterprise applications, support virtual desktops, manage infrastructure and their life cycles across a distributed environment, across data centers and remote office, branch offices, support your UC requirements, help the innovators innovate, specifically those developers, or put in place big data workloads. And certainly through our multiple certifications, specifically with SAP HANA and Oracle, be able to deploy some of those mission critical workloads that your enterprise relies upon. And while you do all this, you get to choose how you build this cloud of yours, right, within your private data center. By selecting from a wide range of platform choices based upon where your expertise lie, your relationships exist, directly with Nutanix or with Dell, Lenovo, Cisco, HPE, IBM, and others that we continually bring on board. You continue to retain your preferences for virtualization, whether you'd like to go license-free with AHV or continue to use VMware or Hyper-V and so forth. And while you're doing all this, you get to be reassured that you've made the safe choice, right? The choice that has been widely accepted and appreciated by not just the customers, but also by the industry experts from Gartner and Forrester. In both these charts, you'll see that we were rated the leader, on the upper right-hand side, right? Which is the best position to be across the Gartner Magic Quadrant and the Forrester Wave. And you've got, as Faisal mentioned, the industry's best support, right? So we are, our support centers are across 100 countries. We've got 7 of them. Follow the sun, so we're always available when you need us. And the support engineer that picks up the phone is the one that's going to take your case and resolve it, right? And ideally within 30 minutes is what we aim for. And as a result, our customers and tend to love us, right? We've got a 90+ net promoter score, which is far higher than any of the other peers that we have in the IT vendor industry, if you will. So you can be rest assured that the support team here builds great partnerships with our customers that rely upon Nutanix to deliver upon the needs of their organizations within their businesses. Now with that, I know we have about 7 more minutes for this webinar. I'd like to open it up to any questions that we can take. And Scott, would you like to kind of moderate that?
Absolutely. So thank you both for this great presentation, first of all. This was incredibly informative, and it's always great to hear a case study. So this is for Faisal. And you may have mentioned this, but what kind of, if you can say, I'm not sure if you can say, but what kind of cost savings were you able to achieve with the switchover you've made?
We saved the cost for, the thing is, first thing we did was we changed our strategy from CapEx to OpEx. So it's like we didn't bought the whole solution upfront. So we leased it for 5 years, and we bundled the whole hardware and software support into it. So we saved that cost over there as compared to CapEx to OpEx, and then we did it like, lease the whole, the hardware and software solution. Plus, there's no cost of maintaining or buying hypervisor. So we use AHV from Nutanix, and we save the cost over there. And plus, so this is all like financial aspect, but if you can see the resources and the time to stall and just start your your cluster, so the Nutanix is like within 2 hours, literally in 2 hours, we have our 4-node cluster start running, and we start migrating. I remember when installing Cisco UCS, it took us like more than 60 hours to engage all the technicians to rack and stack and build the 3-tier infrastructure, because then they have to, they have like so much cabling going forward with the interconnect switches, UCS, the 5 hosts and everything. So you cannot compare that the spending of that man hours, the installation cost, plus all those work which needed to be done installing a 3-tier normal like UCS infrastructure with Nutanix Hyperconverged. So that is also a big saving for us, that we are in production in no time.
So you had some hard cost savings, some soft cost savings,
Yes.
some opportunity cost savings. That's great. Krish, this is a question for you. One of the questions specifically is, can you scale storage, network, and compute independently? But can you talk about some of the different ways that they can scale the Nutanix platform a little bit tailored so that they can meet their resource needs?
Of course. So we've got various different form factors you can choose from, not just from Nutanix, but also from our partners, right? With Dell and with Lenovo, where you're able to choose whether you want to go storage heavy or compute heavy. So as a result, you don't, there's this misconception that when you scale a hyperconverged infrastructure-based environment, you need to scale compute and storage proportionally, and nothing can be further from the truth. So if you find specifically, if you're thinking about a big data workload or a Splunk-based workload, right, you might certainly need to be a little more storage heavy initially, and then over time you might want to scale up compute as well. So you can begin to adopt some of those strategies in terms of how you go about with that scaling, right? So that's a flexibility that's inherently available with Nutanix software and unique amongst others as well.
And Krish, at the same time, what about backup and recovery capabilities inherent in the solution?
Sure, absolutely. So we've got, when you think about backup, we are able to, first of all, we work with some of the most popular backup solutions out in the market, right? So we work with, Haiku, with Rubrik, with Commvault, Veritas, Veeam, right? So we're able to actually allow you to use the backup software that you need, but help orchestrate how that backup takes place from Nutanix onto Nutanix or other, right? So you've got that capability that gives you the freedom to choose how you want to go about doing that. From a DR perspective, when you take it one step further, we've got multiple customers that use different strategies, right? They've got a primary, secondary data center, and they do a synchronous replication across both, which are app consistent, right? So you're able to switch over pretty seamlessly and quickly as required when disaster strikes. Hopefully it never does. We've also got other customers, specifically those that exist in Las Vegas, right? They've got data sovereignty issues where all the data that is created in state should stay in state. So we've got multiple customers that have metro synchronization, right? Active relationships between their primary and secondary sites. So they're able to fail over and fail back very quickly and seamlessly without any loss in business continuity. So there's a few different ways to do it. Finally, with the introduction of Xi Leap, you can choose to eliminate the tax that comes with having to set up a secondary data center that you hope to never use, and consume disaster recovery as a service through Nutanix. We've got a couple data centers that we've provisioned both in San Jose as well as Virginia to support the North American disaster recovery requirements for our customers. And we are expanding into Europe as well. We have a couple different cities that we're going to be launching at over the next couple of quarters, and then further on expand out into the Far East with the likes of Singapore and such.
Sounds good. Gentlemen, that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you both very much for your presentations. They were very informative.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks, Faisal.
Thank you.
thank you to our audience, all 346 of you, for joining up for today's event, and we'll see you at a future event. Thanks.